Brian Grimes, your real estate mentor, here with another Ride and Talk. Just going to be talking about the best deal if you're just starting off. What is the best deal to get yourself into? And I've done a lot of talking about the different strategies. There are a ton of different strategies out there that we can tap ourselves into, even if we're new investors. One that I get a question a lot about is Airbnb. Is Airbnb the best way to start off? You'll hear some good things about Airbnb being a strategy where you don't have to own property and you can invest in it and make outsized returns, which, you know, all of that stuff is true in certain scenarios, but it's not true for every deal. So every deal does not fit that archetype where you're just going to not own the property, you're going to make a ton of money, it's completely passive, all of these things. I would say Airbnb, there's nothing passive about short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are very active in terms of the management style. So you're constantly dealing with new tenants. You have to constantly clean the properties. There are different ongoing reoccurring expenses. And the thing that really bothers me with the Airbnb strategy is regulation. We have cities like New York, Atlanta, where they've pretty much banned Airbnb activity. New York on January 1st, 2023, releases a document, a 30-page document with regulations against landlords for Airbnb. So it's gonna make it harder and more expensive to be a Airbnb landlord. In some instances, it'll just wipe complete properties off that Airbnb map. So if you got into an investment property in a New York City area and that deal only made sense as an Airbnb investment, which is the case most of the time, you're gonna lose some money. You might have to fire sale that deal because renting it out, you know, Section 8 or with some of these regular market tenants for a long-term rental doesn't quite make sense. Next up, we have this new strategy, midterm rentals. So there are a lot of travelers across the United States. So if you didn't want to go into an Airbnb strategy where you're doing that super short-term rental, you can do midterm rentals where you rent to, kind of like room rentals, a group of people that are not related by blood. There are different regulations on this depending on where you're at. It's not quite co-living in the true sense that I do co-living, but if you have people like traveling nurses or contractors who will go and work in one location for 3 to 6 months until their contract is up, and then they'll move to another location and kind of roam around, which there's a huge pool of people who do this, especially more and more now with remote work kind of being a thing due to COVID. You will have an opportunity to do midterm rentals. And what I've seen with these midterm rentals, these are 3 to 6 month terms instead of like long-term, which would be a year or more, sometimes 2 years, sometimes a 3-year lease. But these 3 to 6 month leases, they're coming at an extreme premium. I've seen anywhere from a 25% to 50% monthly premium on the rent. So that could be a major play, especially if you are one of these people and you understand the market. If you are a traveling nurse, if you are a traveling contractor and you understand that market, where those types of people hang out, what type of social media platforms they're on, you can direct target your properties directly to those people. And they're looking for these midterm rentals because not a lot of landlords bother with it. It seems like most landlords are on the short-term spectrum or the long-term spectrum, which I kind of land myself more on the long-term spectrum. On the long-term end, you have things like Section 8. Section 8 can be great. With Section 8, that's where the government will pay the money for the rent. They'll do it on a voucher-based program. So somebody will get issued a voucher based upon how many kids they have. If they have 4 kids, maybe they get a 4-bed voucher. If they have 5 kids, they get a 5-bed, and so on and so forth. And that the size of that voucher determines how much rent you can collect or how much rent the government will pay you to rent to that person. So if you accept the voucher and your property is approved and qualified, which means it's just up to HUD housing standards, scrape and paint, move-in ready, is very livable and doesn't have major hazards with that property, the government's going to pay a large portion of the rent, typically anywhere from 70 to 100%. So there are instances, many by the way, where the government will pay 95 to 100% of the rent. The tenant might be responsible for $50 out of a $1,500 a month rent. So it's very secure in that sense. There are some pitfalls. I have another video, just screen my channel, where I talk about, is Section 8 great? I put a whole video together on this if you want to dive into the Section 8 strategy. So you can do long-term strategies like that, low-income housing, government rentals, and that's really safe as a strategy. But in terms of the property, I'll get questions about, is this a good property to do this on? Should I get a multifamily? Should I get a single family? Should I get a rehab project? Should I do the burst strategy? And what should I do as a first-time buyer? As a first-time buyer, unless you have proper mentorship, somebody who's guiding you through the process, handling the rehab for you, you would be smarter, if you're just trying to learn from the school of hard knocks, to go for an easy deal, a smaller deal, probably a single family, turnkey. Or if you're not going to go single and you're going to go multi, do turnkey. Turnkey means I sell you the property, I hand you the keys. Maybe you do like a refresh paint job, put down some carpet, and that property is move-in ready. All the appliances work, all the utilities work, the heat, the hot water's on, the gas is on, the electric's on, and all you have to do is spit shine and move somebody right in. You're not there to do a gut rehab and try to figure all this stuff out and pull in contractors, because you'll get burned like I did. On my first deal where I tried to do this, I got burned for 40 grand by a contractor. And I always tell people that, like, full transparency, because you need to understand that this game is very expensive. And if you jump in the deep end like I did, you can get burned for serious money because you don't know what you're doing. And at that time, I knew a ton. I knew more than 90% of investors, but I still didn't understand that construction piece, which can be at times the hardest piece to pick up. So going turnkey protects you from that hardest piece, that construction piece, and it allows you to get straight to the cash flow. Most turnkey properties you can have tenanted within 30 days, 30 to 45 days from purchasing the property, which means you can start making cash flow immediately, especially if you're collecting that first month, last month in security. Once you're collecting that type of money, now you're putting yourself in a position where money's coming in, you're feeling really good about real estate, and you can take the next step and build resources off of that property. So you can now build your construction team around that turnkey property, because like with any property, you're gonna have roof leaks or basement leaks, or an outlet went out, or the water is not coming through strong enough. We need to increase the pressure. The stove blew out, we need to refresh that. And you're gonna have to contact different maintenance men and handymen and different people to keep this property maintained and flowing so that the cash flow keeps coming. Because if you don't make the repairs, the tenant's not gonna wanna pay, right? So once you build those resources around your turnkey property, now when you go to do your rehab, you will have naturally some resources. You're not gonna have every resource you need to do a full gut renovation, but you will have more than zero. And the thing that we know about contractors, just like dentists know dentists, doctors know doctors, lawyers know lawyers, contractors know contractors. And you can, through that referral line, build a team of contractors that can full gut renovate a property for you and at least test it out. If you're doing some of the things that I teach you in my 100 Keys Masterclass, my mentorship program, where I work with you one-on-one to get through this stuff, you'll know how to control the money on these jobs and really manage them at a high level, so that you're not putting yourself in a position to get burned. And there are only a few steps to doing that where you can fully protect yourself from getting burned. How do I know? Because I got burned and then I made those corrections to make sure that that would not happen again. And certainly not on that scale. If I wanted to take a risk, I could do it on a very small, like a $500 basis to test somebody to see if they could deliver with a little bit more freedom versus putting out serious money. So the easiest way to get in is definitely turnkey, long-term, and I would say affordable housing, because affordable housing is always in demand, and if anything, the demand increases during times of recession, which is what we're going into. So if you're looking to get started right now in this market, I say we're in a recession, and that's just because I've seen the government try to change the definition of what a recession is to try to say that we're not in one. But from a historical standpoint, we've been in a recession. We're going to go deeper into the recession, and this is a great time to tap yourself into affordable housing, because when times get tough, people choose alternatives, and the alternative to choose right now is something cheaper that allows you as a renter to keep more money in your pocket. So on the landlord side, you want to be in that business, and you can get in that business in cheaper areas as well. You can go into C-class neighborhoods and create affordable housing at a very low cost versus going into an A-class neighborhood and playing that high-end rental game, where those people are going to lose their jobs first. As companies cut back in a recession, they're going to lay off those people first. The people that are working in more durable jobs are going to keep their jobs a bit more. There will still be layoffs, but some of these industries are recession proof. So it's not like delivery drivers and things like that are going to lose their jobs. They're going to still be driving and still be delivering stuff and making money, because they're in more of a durable industry where people always need, goods and services delivered to their front door. So definitely stay tapped into this real estate game. I just wanted to give you guys that quick update on that question, because we get it so much. If you want to go into that Airbnb strategy, just use caution. There's nothing extremely wrong with Airbnb, but you have that regulatory risk where the government can step in and just ban it, and you do have people lobbying against Airbnb. I won't say everywhere, not necessarily the suburbs, and in any major city you try to do this in, you could get extremely wrecked. And the midterm rental is something that a lot of us need to look into, especially if we know people who travel like that and are looking for that type of product, because from a premium standpoint and from a management standpoint, it's less management than an Airbnb. It's more of a premium than a long-term rental. It's a little bit more management than a long-term rental, because you can't set it and forget it truly. Average Section 8 tenant stays for 5 to 7 years. So you can't necessarily get that type of a long-term tenant, but you're getting a serious premium. So if you start renting out 3 bedrooms at a markup, you might be making $1,500 a month per single family property versus $400 a month or so, because you're going to get extra incomes and then mark them up. So it's a crazy business. It's definitely a subsector, and you start stealing away money from the motels and the hotels, and that's a good business to be in. So Brian Grimes, your real estate mentor. Like, comment, subscribe, and leave a comment that says I subscribe. For everybody who leaves that comment, I'll send you instant access to my free real estate training that'll show you how to acquire properties for pennies on the dollar all across the country. You don't want to miss out on that free offer. Appreciate you guys. Stay tapped in to the channel, and we're going to keep this rolling. More free content coming weekly. Talk soon.